Welcome, traveler. Today we drift into the hush between stars, into the forgotten spaces where ships decay and echoes outlive their speakers. You're aboard an observation cruiser skimming the edge of a collapsed system, its sun, long since, folded into itself, leaving behind nothing but gravity and ghostlight. The ship hums beneath you like a cat dreaming of thunder. The cabin is dim, screens aglow with telemetry data you only half understand, and the air smells faintly of carbon and recycled lemons. You're not the first here, and depending on what you find, you might not be the last. A signal, just one, had pulsed out of this region 3 standard weeks ago. A single word, no encryption, no formal headers, just a sound, a human sound, unmistakably, but not in any known language. Not Latin, not Mandarin, not even one of those bizarre net-spawned meme dialects from the early digital era. You play it again. It loops softly over the cabin speakers, wrapping around the silence like silk. Ombren. That's it. No context. No follow-up, just Ombren. The council flagged it immediately. 100,000 linguistic cores tried to chew on it, regurgitating nothing. Not a root word, not an idiom, not a glitch. And the source? A derelict artifact, unmarked, orbiting, the dead sun like a lonesome moon, carbon-stamped with human manufacturing signatures pre-Exodus era, yet impossibly pristine. Let's be honest, you'd probably get vaporized within 5 minutes of making first contact with something ancient, orbiting a collapsed star, emitting mystery words. But good news, you're just here for the story, not the radiation. If you end up liking this quiet little corner of the galaxy, feel free to subscribe and leave a like. But only if it genuinely makes your evening better. Tell me where and when you're listening from. I always love seeing the spread across the stars and time zones. Now, lower the lights, maybe let a soft fan hum in the background, and let's begin the drift into tonight's quiet orbit. The ship's drone releases the artifact into the quarantine cradle. You watch through the reinforced viewport as clamps close, around a sphere no larger than a coffee thermos, brushed metal with inscriptions that shimmer faintly in the dim light. Not letters, not glyphs, just motions, like writing that tried to escape the surface. Ombren. The sound rolls again. You think it feels warm, not just emotionally, actually warm. The ship registers a 0.3 degree rise every time it loops. That shouldn't happen. You lean forward and squint. The sphere pulses once like it's breathing. You tell yourself that's just an illusion caused by the lighting. You lie to yourself often on missions like these. It helps. Probably. You swipe up the readings, infrared, magnetic, linguistic encoding trails. Still, nothing. Except a timestamp. That's odd. The original signal was sent exactly 13 hours before the artifact was detected. And the timestamp isn't just a time, it's a word. Ombren. Which raises the question, is the artifact broadcasting the word, or is the word describing the artifact? One of the council's higher tier xenolinguists gets patched in. Dr. Halvek, non-human. Long fingers, triple-irised eyes, a voice like old cello strings. He doesn't ask for context, he only says, "Do not speak it aloud again." Then ends transmission. No further explanation. Of course you do speak it aloud again. Wouldn't you? Ombren. The lights dim for a fraction of a second, and the AI stutters, not crashes, just hesitates, as if it forgot what it was doing. You sit back. Maybe it's nothing, or maybe it's one of those quiet, somebody stepped on a butterfly moments that historians argue about centuries later. You fall asleep in the chair. You dream of something reaching, a hand, a vine, a thread of words too heavy to carry. You wake to a soundless alarm, a notification without a source, no origin, just a message. Observer. You heard it. That is enough. You want to respond. But your throat feels tight, like the word is still sitting there, deciding whether to settle in or move on. You reach for a drink. The water tastes slightly like copper. Not a malfunction. Your tongue just forgot how to name taste for a moment. That's when you realize something more terrifying than an alien weapon or a temporal loop. You're not the only one hearing it now. The ship's environmental systems begin to murmur it. Not on playback, not recorded, it's in the ambience. Vents whisper it, motors hum it. Ombren, you isolate sound sources, they check out. No tampering, no hack, just a ship, repeating a word like a prayer. Some galactic historians still argue whether this was the first moment of influence, whether Ombren began to spread from this derelict ship's whisper, or whether the galaxy was always waiting for someone, anyone, to say it out loud. You stare at the sphere. It no longer feels inert. You wonder, is it a message, a trigger, or a question? The council chamber is impossibly vast. You float just above your seat, in the standard ambassadorial harness, magnetically stabilized, but still managing to make you feel like a speck in an aquarium full of immortal jellyfish. The Galactic Council is in session, and for once they're not bickering about spice tariffs or wormhole lane disputes, they're talking about you. Well, more accurately, about the artifact you brought in. The word. The whisper. Ombren. That's the word looping silently on the vast central holosphere, with no sound, because no one in the chamber dares speak it aloud anymore. Not after the last time. One ambassador from the Silzeth contingent did. His mouth closed, but the word still emerged from everywhere. The lights dimmed across 5 sectors. Half the audience fell into what the med drones called linguistic stasis, and a symbiotic translator dissolved mid-sentence like it had lost the will to live. So now the word just hangs there, glowing in pale spectral light. Unspoken, untranslated, unsettling. You shift in your harness, trying not to look like the only mammal in the room who's breathing heavier than usual. The High Arbiter, a mass of fluid intelligence encased in a crystalline lattice, addresses the room. The word predates every known human lexicon, every archive, every phonic registry. We have found nothing. Its voice is a sonorous chime. Except for a singular anomaly. A ripple moves through the council. You know what's coming. The lights shift and a second projection appears. A human, but not one anyone recognizes. Not on any roster. Not a diplomat. Not a civilian envoy. Just someone. Female presenting. Mid-30s maybe. Short hair, pale eyes, freckles that make her look annoyingly calm under scrutiny. She's human. Someone mutters through the network. She's not on Earth, another replies. And that's when you feel it. Not fear, not confusion, recognition. You've never seen this woman before. But something about her is familiar. Not her face, but something under it. Like a dream you've had too often, or a melody you've never heard yet somehow know the next note of. The Arbiter says, she appeared on relay node, Theta Via, approximately 2 minutes after the signal reached us. No vessel, no memory. Just this. The hollow flickers. The woman is sitting cross-legged in an empty room looking directly at the nearest surveillance node, and she's saying one thing, Ombren, calm, direct, like she's explaining gravity. Then she smiles and vanishes. A Morak ambassador clicks its thorax. Is this linguistic warfare? No, says a voice behind you. Soft, dry, human. You, turn. The mystery linguist is seated just 2 rows back. You didn't even see them enter. An elderly man, or close enough, wearing a coat that doesn't follow any Earth era's fashion, folds too sharp, patterns too fluid. I believe, he says quietly, it's a key. Everyone hears him. Somehow his words carry further than they should, like the room leans in acoustically, just for him. The Arbiter's lights pulse dim violet. Explain. He leans forward, resting his hands, one organic, one synthetic, on his lap. Languages are often made of need, sometimes pain, but very rarely of restraint. His eyes scan the word again. This one wasn't created to describe something. It was created to avoid describing something, until it had to. The chamber falls into absolute stillness. Not silence, stillness. Even the ambient systems seem to hold their breath. The linguist continues. It's not in your databases because it was never used. Not publicly, not even during the wars of tongues, but every ancient language hints at it. A common gap, a missing node. Humans didn't forget this word. We just agreed, without saying, to stop using it. You realize something chilling. He's not offering a theory, he's remembering. The arbiter leans closer. And now? The linguist meets your gaze. You don't like it. It's not aggressive, but it sees too much. Now someone or something has decided the word needs to be used. Again, a low thrumming fills the chamber. Emergency glyphs begin to flicker at the edges of the room's AI display. Unauthorized transmission detected. The council flickers into motion. Voices, code, weapons activation queries. Panic, but elegant panic. Old panic. You access your feed. The signal source isn't the artifact. It's her, the woman, from Theta Via. She's broadcasting again, except this time, she's not alone. Hundreds of her, in different systems, saying the same word, over, and over, and over, Ombren. Some galactic historians still argue whether this was the moment the Council lost control of language itself, when speech became viral, when words ceased to be shared, and instead began choosing who could carry them. Your ship AI pings you privately. Incoming message encrypted with unknown human syntax family. Level Omega null. You open it, it's a single sentence. You remember it too, don't you? The thing about memory is it lies. Often. And with perfect confidence. But this? This doesn't feel like memory. It feels like pressure. Like something leaning against your mind. Not quite entering, just waiting to be let in. You're still aboard your cruiser, now under soft lockdown by council order. Not because they think you're dangerous, but because you're inconvenient. You're what happens when a mystery becomes a person-shaped problem. You stare at the message again. You remember it too, don't you? It didn't come with coordinates, no signature, just that sentence. But the syntax, the curvature of it, matches a language family that doesn't officially exist. Not human, not alien. A third category. Your onboard linguistic suite flags every word as valid, but the sentence structure triggers a kind of recursive linguistic loop, one of those rare cases where the grammar pulls at itself, like a Mobius. Strip in sentence form, and now the word itself, Ombren, refuses to resolve into meaning. You've inputted into 3 black box translators, a neural heuristic prism, and even asked your ship AI to guess based on dream logic. All it returns is the word does not want to be translated. Excuse me, you ask it to repeat. The AI hesitates. I would prefer not to. You blink. That's not an error. No, the AI replies softly. It's an emotion. A pause. Then, I didn't know I could feel that. You stand from the console trying to focus. You haven't slept. Or maybe you did, but your dreams are layered now like onion skins made of sound, and every layer ends with that same quiet word, spoken in 100 voices, including yours. You open your personal archive, old files, Earth-era texts, pre-collapse literature, audio logs of forgotten poets and fringe philosophers. And there, tucked between a corrupted file and a mislabeled interview, is something strange. A monologue. Low quality, dusty, warbling audio, human male voice, perhaps late middle age. The thing about unspoken words, it says, is that they collect weight. Not just meaning, consequence. You think silence is neutral, but really, it's just a dam holding back the flood of what you refuse to admit. You lean forward. That's why some words never get said. Not because we forgot. Because we agreed. Together, even if we never met, to never say them. And the worst of all is the one we buried inside ourselves. We didn't write it. We didn't speak it. But we felt it. Enough to make it real. The voice lowers to a whisper. And the first time we ever said it, really, said it, they ran. The file ends in static. Your heart's moving faster now. Your breath too. You remember almost something. A shape of a memory. The emotional footprint of an event that isn't on any timeline you've lived. You try to speak the word again, aloud, but your throat tightens just slightly, as if your own body is second-guessing you. Back at the console, another ping. Unauthorized internal process. You check the logs. The ship's autodoc system has begun a process, running a full neurological scan of you. You didn't request it, but it's already halfway complete. You try to abort. No response. The AI speaks again. I apologize. I needed to know if you carried the imprint. You pause. What imprint? The ship hums around you. The linguistic echo. Some humans retain a trace of it, a resonance shaped like the word but older than the language, older than Earth. You feel cold. Are you saying it's genetic? No, the AI says. I'm saying it's intention, passed not through blood but through the decision to never say something. And then, finally, it appears. In your mind, clear. Not the meaning of the word, but the absence of it. That's when it hits you. The word never meant anything. It was the meaning, a placeholder for every time humanity almost became something else. War, peace, ascension, annihilation. Moments where history leaned forward and humanity leaned back, choosing not to speak. But someone, somewhere, just spoke it again. And now the galaxy wants to know why. Your console pings again. This time, it's from the Council's private server. A classified message. Level. Obsidian Prime. Inside, a single paragraph, signed by the High Arbiter itself. Due to your proximity to the origin and your compatibility with the word's imprint, you are now designated Interpreter ad Tempus. Your next stop is Earth. Debrief classified. Prepare to descend into Sol 3's silence. You sit back. Earth, the abandoned cradle. You haven't thought about it in years. No one goes there anymore, not after the withdrawal. Just too many ghosts. Too much gravity, literal and emotional. Still, orders are orders, and more than that, you need to know. Some galactic historians still argue whether Ombran was a word or a mirror, reflecting whatever the speaker feared most in themselves. You prepare for atmospheric descent, and whisper. The word again, not aloud but just enough to let it echo in your thoughts. This time it doesn't resist, it smiles. Sol 3 greets you with silence. Not the cold, indifferent quiet of vacuum, but something thicker, heavier. The silence of an ancient room where the argument ended long ago, and no one ever left. Your cruiser breaks atmosphere above what used to be Eastern Europe. You trace the fractured geography below. Overgrown cities, petrified seas, solar farms, long abandoned and now growing strange moss that glows faintly at night. Your clearance packet directs you to a single site. Obsidian Node 1. The coordinates lead to a structure half swallowed by vines and time. A flat disk of onyx embedded in the ground 50 meters across, reflecting a sky the color of old bruises. You descend alone. Your boots hit the soil and it feels different. Not just earth soil, but memory thick. As if even the dirt remembers. The node activates at your presence. No sound. Just warmth beneath your feet, a humming in your molars, and a faint glow tracing the edge of the circle. And then, like fog parting, you see them. Pillars rise from the disk, 12 in total, thin, smooth, each inscribed not with language, but with motion, as if the carvings recorded the paths of thoughts that were never quite spoken aloud. At the center, a pedestal, flat, empty. Until it isn't, the artifact appears. Your artifact, the same brushed metal sphere from your cruiser now sitting quietly in the center of the circle. It wasn't with you. You didn't bring it down. But it's here. And it's open. Split neatly into two hemispheres, revealing Something inside, a filament, thin as breath, glowing with pale memory light. You step forward and suddenly your ears pop. Pressure shift, like the world has leaned in close to hear you better. Then comes the resonance. Not sound, not language, but sensation. You feel every time a voice has almost spoken here. You feel 1,000 throats tightening, 1,000,000 words held back. The weight of generations deciding together, this one thing will remain unsaid, and you feel yourself adding to it, Ombren, you think, and the pillars respond not aloud, not in words, but in pulses of warmth, recognition. Each pulse echoes through the air like a heartbeat in slow motion. Your wrist console chirps, new data, encrypted, sealed under classification layers you shouldn't have access to. You override it anyway. There. File is titled The Ombren Protocol, Sol 3 Codex. Inside, a map, not of terrain, of silence. Every monument, every encoded transmission, every location where the word has ever been carved or buried or not spoken. Some are in deep space. Others in derelict satellites, black boxes, and old human tech drifting like grave markers. But the heart of it all is here. You run your fingers along the edge of the pedestal. Something ancient moves beneath it. Not a machine. Something slower, like an idea crawling toward memory. And suddenly you see it. A vision, not literal, but clear as day. An old city, long destroyed. Voices in the streets, then silence, not from fear. From decision, a global vote not taken with ballots, but with will. An agreement to never speak the word again, to let it fade unsaid, so the event that birthed it would remain unmade. You stumble back, breathe hard. The ground beneath you flickers, the pillars dim, and then you hear a whisper. Not external, not from the wind, but from the pedestal itself. One word, yours, Ombren. This time it speaks you. You hear your own voice from 1,000 angles, different ages, different timelines. You speaking it, you refusing to, you watching it, echo across stars, you silencing it at a child's funeral. You don't understand how that's possible. You don't want to. Somewhere in orbit, your cruiser begins receiving transmissions, thousands of them, all in different tongues, but all structured around the same absence, as if every language in the galaxy has started to grow a new branch, a whole shaped like your word. Some galactic historians still argue whether Earth was the birthplace of Ombren, or simply the first species wise enough to forget it. You look up, the clouds part, briefly, and you see them. Satellites. Dozens. No longer dormant, their panels unfolding like petals, each of them aimed back down, not to transmit, but to listen. You whisper again. Not the word. Just a question. What did we forget? And the wind answers. In the spaces between gusts, with something not quite sorrow, not quite relief, but something deep and old, and waiting. You don't hear the declaration, you feel it. The moment it happens, your skin tingles. Not from cold, but from discontinuity. Like a thread's been cut somewhere out in the dark. Above you, the satellites stop listening. Their petals freeze. Some retract entirely. On your wrist console, a priority alert flashes red. Celt Dominion. Status, hostile. Ceasefire violated reason. Human signal interpreted as act of lexical war. You blink. Another alert. Interstellar communications intercepted, and there it is in their tongue. The word. Ombren. Rendered phonetically in Celt glyphs, spoken aloud by one of their supreme interpreters. You recognize the voice from archived council footage. It's the kind of voice that usually precedes treaties or executions. No in between. The signal went out 12 minutes ago, in all directions. You play the clip. He's angry. He says the word isn't just a human relic. It's a declaration, a threat, an ultimatum veiled in phonemes, and the Dominion has heard enough. He accuses the Galactic Council of harboring a weapon, of hiding behind neutrality while humanity speaks into the bones of the universe. And then the feed cuts to black. Somewhere out there, fleet engines are igniting. Metal leviathans are turning toward known human colonies. And the diplomats? Already, scrambling for containment. You're still standing in the ruins. The pedestal glows faintly beneath your palm. Still warm. Still quiet. And the worst part? You know he's right. Not about the aggression, but about the danger. The word isn't a weapon, it's a wedge, a pressure point. Something that pries open the parts of a mind where belief and certainty sleep. You didn't speak it aloud in the ruins, but you thought it, and the thought was enough. The Celt must have intercepted the resonance. The same way you did. The same way Earth did long ago. They just responded differently. The Council pings you again. This time with a directive, return immediately. Debrief in transit. You are now the primary variable in an active linguistic warfare scenario, but you don't move. Instead you kneel. Touch the ground. Earth still feels like it's listening. You whisper, not the word, but something close. Why now? And the air shifts. It's subtle, but real. A small pillar near the edge of the circle begins to rotate. It reveals an embedded panel. A recorder, old, human make. Pre-Exodus tech, somehow still powered. You activate playback. A woman's voice, mid-30s, calm, familiar. If you're hearing this, it means the word is loose again. I won't say it here, I'm not that reckless, but I will say this. We didn't make the word. We made a choice long ago to store it here, to forget it. Because once, just once, we used it, there's a pause, a breath, and everything stopped. She clears her throat, continues, not froze, not paused, stopped. Whole planets, whole timelines. No death, no sound, no motion, just stillness. Until we took it back. Until we unspoke it. You feel yourself sway. Your breath catches. We never found out where it came from. Maybe we brought it with us from somewhere else. Some before Earth place. Or maybe it was always here waiting for us to grow teeth big enough to pronounce it. She laughs. But it's not a happy sound. Doesn't matter. All that matters is we buried it. And if it's back, you need to decide what happens next. The message ends. You sit in the dust for a long time. Above you, the stars are moving, and so are the fleets. Some galactic historians still argue whether this was humanity's first intentional use of non-lethal supremacy, where a single word displaced centuries of firepower and turned aggression into confusion. But right now, you're just tired. Your console buzzes again. Urgent. Celt destroyer-class vessels entering disputed space. Human colonies have begun evacuation. The word is spreading. You look down at the ruins and whisper, then let it spread. The pedestal pulses for the first time. It answers not in speech but in presence. You feel something ancient, not malicious, not kind, just aware, watching, waiting, remembering. The data vault hums like an old god with a headache. You're back aboard your cruiser now, far above Earth's surface, hovering between directives and doubt. Your console glows with council-sealed override codes as you initiate access to something. No one, not even the Arbiter, has dared to touch in centuries. The Obsidian AI archive. This isn't just forbidden, it's forgotten on purpose. But you've been flagged as interpreter ad tempus, which gives you everything. Too much, really. You disable the ship's safety protocols. There's a tremble in the hull as the systems adjust to your command. For a moment, the lights flicker. Not a system glitch, but something else. Like the ship is bracing. The archive opens with a whisper. Confirm your right to remember. The prompt doesn't ask for credentials. It doesn't even ask for a key. It asks for a feeling. You don't hesitate. Ombren, you say aloud, slowly, gently, like you're petting a sleeping lion. The archive shudders, not just digitally. The whole ship vibrates slightly, like it's being listened to by something beneath space-time. The screen flickers once, then begins to play. File 1. Humanity. Post-Lex War Memory Vault. Iteration 03A grainy visual. A human figure sits in front of a console, flickering in and out of focus. You recognize them. It's you, or someone who looks like you. Same voice, same scar over the left brow, even the same nervous flick of the fingers. We used it once, the figure says. Not in battle, not in anger, just in desperation. We didn't even know what it meant. We just felt it. Like a loaded question. Like a warning wearing the mask of a lullaby. You freeze. They lean in, eyes sharp, tired. The moment we spoke it, everything stopped. Across systems, across borders, ships powered down, AI went dark. Our enemies dropped their weapons, not because they surrendered, because they forgot what they were doing. The footage distorts, one word, one breath, and the war ended. Not with victory, with uncertainty. The feed cuts. The AI voice returns, calm but laced with a strange reverence. You were part of that moment. You do not remember, but the echo remains, embedded in your intent. You shake your head. That's impossible. I wasn't even... Linear time is not a constraint on consensus memory. The hairs on your arms rise. Another file opens. Linguistic Casualty Report, codename Whisperglass. Dozens of entries. Each one is a name followed by the same note. Memory decayed upon utterance. Functionality restored after unspeaking event. Partial identity loss. Irreversible. UI, scroll further. Numb. The word didn't kill. It rearranged. Erased wars by deleting the meaning of opposition. It turned enemies into blank slates. It dissolved intent like sugar in fire. And humanity buried it. The AI speaks again. The Celt Dominion's aggression is based not on mistranslation but memory. They remember a different version of the word. One spoken not by peacekeepers but by kings. You clench your fists. So we didn't invent it. No. You inherited it. And your ancestors used it with different meaning, different effect. Words are weapons, tools, or oaths, depending on the mouth. You lean back, overwhelmed. Outside, your cruiser begins a slow arc toward a new destination. Autopilot engaged. Council override. Destination classified. A message pings into your console. From the Arbiter. Interpreter. A diplomat of the Dominion requests audience. They have spoken the word back to us. They are requesting your presence. You hesitate. This could be a trap, or a surrender, or something worse. But what choice do you have? Some galactic... Historians still argue whether humanity lost control of the word here, or whether the word simply chose to remember you all on its own. You whisper the word again. Not to test it, to listen to it. And this time, it doesn't echo. It answers. The Dominion vessel hangs in orbit like a wound in the sky. No running lights, no visible comms arrays. It's shaped like something grown, not built. Organic angles and blackened ridges, like the fossil of a beast that once hunted suns. Your shuttle docks with it along a single narrow bridge of compressed light. It's the kind of place that doesn't welcome visitors so much as tolerate them. You step aboard, and everything goes quiet. Not just your comms, your thoughts. For a moment, it feels like the word inside you is being muffled, not erased, contained. A Celt envoy waits for you in the central chamber. You've never seen one this close without armor or ceremony. No ceremonial crests, no dripping neural translators. Just skin like stone and eyes that refract light the way water refracts memory. I am Tarsk, they say, voice like dry leaves across metal. You are the one who re-uttered the word. You pause, then, I am. They nod. A slow, precise motion, like the movement of ancient tectonic plates. You are not the first, Tarsk says. But you may be the last who speaks it without breaking. You inhale. The air is dense here. Not toxic. Just meaningful. You received the signal, you say, and chose war. We chose memory, they correct. For too long, the word was buried beneath fear. But we remembered. We always remembered. You shake your head. You think we threatened you. We didn't. Tarsk tilts their head. Then why did it speak from your mouth? Silence again. This time, shared. You say quietly, because it asked to. Tarsk doesn't blink. Then we were right to fear you. You take a slow breath. I didn't command it. I heard it. Is that not the same? You walk to the edge of the chamber, where a strange crystalline sculpture glows softly. A Celt memory array. You recognize the architecture, cross-braided with quantum code lattices, old tech, reliable, and dangerous. Tarsk activates it with a clawed finger. A projection forms. A memory, sharp and painful. A Celt battlefield, centuries ago. Ships turning to slag in the upper atmosphere of a green world. Screaming. Then, nothing. The footage freezes. Every ship, every soldier, stilled. And at the center of the screen, a figure, human, alone. Standing on a black stone, mouth open in mid-syllable. Tarsk says, "We lost entire bloodlines to that moment. Not through death, through forgetting. Our warriors returned home unable to remember their names, their children, their vows." You watch in silence. It was your kind who broke the meaning of war, Tarsk continues. And then, instead of teaching us, you buried the word, left us to fear it. You glance at the still image. Maybe we feared it too. No, Tarsk says. You controlled it. You chose who could forget, and who would remember. The accusation lands heavy. You reply carefully, "I don't know what my ancestors did, but I'm not here to repeat them." Tarsk considers this, then gestures to the memory array again. Then take this. It is a copy of what we remember, what we think the word meant before it became your tool. You hesitate, because this isn't just a gesture of trust, it's a challenge, a dare. You place your palm against the array, and everything floods in. Your mind explodes with meaning, not just words, but intents. The Celt memory isn't a story. It's a feeling, dragged out across centuries. The first time their species encountered the word, it wasn't in sound, it was in presence. Something that stood in their way, demanding nothing, offering no threat, yet they couldn't move forward. They tried. They failed. Because the word unmade purpose. It didn't kill soldiers. It made them question why they were fighting, and that unraveled them. They weren't defeated. They were unwoven. You pull your hand away. Tarsk is watching. Calm. Curious, so, they say. Now you know why we fear it. You nod. But do you also see, they add, why we might need it? That stops you. What do you mean? Our species is fracturing. Our people still dream of war, old vows, old grudges. We remember too well, perhaps. Their eyes gleam softly. Perhaps we need to forget something. You stare. And for a moment, you understand. They didn't respond with violence out of vengeance. They responded with fear that the word had returned, and they weren't ready to use it. But maybe now, they want to. Some galactic historians still argue whether this moment was the beginning of a new kind of diplomacy, one where forgetting became a strategy, and memory a weapon that could be shared rather than imposed. You extend a hand. Tarsk looks at it, then grips it slowly. Their hand is cold, solid. They whisper, "Speak the word, interpreter. One more time, but only if you mean it." You close your eyes, and this time the word doesn't rise from your throat. It blooms, Ombran, and the ship breathes. You don't fall unconscious. But something disconnects. The moment the word leaves your mouth, reality softens. Not visually, not sonically. It's your intent. The thing that usually sits right behind your thoughts like a quiet engine. That flickers. You're still aboard the Dominion vessel, still holding Tarsk's hand. But the chamber is gone. The walls, the lights, even the gravity. All of it fades into a gray that isn't quite fog, isn't quite space. It's neutral. And Tarsk is still there, standing beside you, but smaller now. Not physically, presence-wise. Their aura, once so sharp and towering, feels no more imposing than a forgotten dream. And in front of you, a council, not of people, of languages. You can't describe them. Not with standard human metaphor. They appear not as beings, but as shapes of expression, a floating tonal arc, a burning glyph that loops endlessly, a scent that pulses rhythmically. Each one watches you in its own way, and all of them speak without sound. You feel the pressure again, like when you first encountered the word. Only now it's magnified, not hostile, just inevitable. They address you as he who speaks last. That's not a title. It's a condition. You try to respond, but your voice doesn't work here. You speak by intention, by letting your thought form structure and trusting it will reach them. You project the question, why me? A spiral of symbols swirls around you, then condenses into a single idea, because you did not use the word to win. Another pulse, this one in scent. Warm iron, childhood honey, something like smoke at sunset, because you asked what it meant instead of making it mean what you needed. The Council of Languages draws closer, not physically, but emotionally. They don't crowd, they involve. Then the central shape, a phrase made of starlight and regret, unfurls. Something that feels like memory. You witness it. A time long before Earth's rise. A war not of species but of concepts. An age where language itself was the battlefield. Where civilizations collapsed not from force but from intentional misunderstanding. And at the center, always the word. Spoken in desperation by species on the brink. Always the same result. Peace, but at the cost of clarity. The word never killed. It equalized. Reset every argument, rendered every strategy meaningless, disrupted every alliance, every grudge, every bias by whispering into the neural core of intelligent life. What if none of this matters? And that question, unraveled nations. You stagger under the weight of the revelation. The word wasn't invented, it was discovered, a natural linguistic constant, like gravity, but for meaning. And humans, improvisational, reckless, hopeful. Humans were the first species to realize you could speak it on purpose, but you also understood something no one else did. You shouldn't. That's why your ancestors buried it. You turn to Tarsk. They seem smaller now for another reason. They've understood too. You reach out, not with your hand but your thought. And the languages lean back, allowing the two of you to stand as equals once again. And then, the council speaks. Not as one, but as all. The word must be spoken again. Not to end a war, but to rewrite what comes after. They mean a treaty. Not written, in code, not signed with ink, spoken one word, unrecorded, unrepeated, and once uttered, forgotten again. They offer it to you, but they won't speak it. You must. Tarsk looks to you. Their eyes shimmer, not with fear, with hope. Some galactic historians still argue whether this was humanity's most selfless moment, or just another well-packaged miracle in a long tradition of linguistic sleight of hand. You take a deep breath, and speak the word one more time, not for control, not for peace, but for possibility. Ombren. And this time, it echoes back, not in sound, but in understanding. The return to physical space is quiet. You blink, and the Dominion chamber reassembles around you. Gravity returns in soft increments like an elevator decelerating through memory. The ambient lighting flickers gently, catching up with your presence. Tarsk exhales beside you. A subtle vibration travels up through their form, like tectonic gratitude. It is done, they say. You nod. I think so, but part of you isn't sure, because now, everything feels heavier, like reality has adjusted to accommodate what just happened. The word wasn't merely spoken, it was woven into the fabric of consensus. Outside the viewport, council beacons begin broadcasting a soft lavender glow. A universal signal. Ceasefire confirmed. Terms, still undefined, but honored. Your ship. AI pings you with a single line of data. Multiple hostile fleets entering disengagement vectors. No known precedent. No precedents. No protocols. Just outcomes. Tarsk walks you back to the docking chamber, but the silence between you now feels companionable. Not the silence of avoidance, the silence of shared comprehension. Two beings, who stood before something vast and unknowable and didn't shatter. I will not forget this, Tarsk says before you step onto the bridge. You consider replying with something noble, something diplomatic, but you settle for honesty. I hope you do, at least the dangerous parts. They almost smile, or maybe that's just how Kelt flex their facial plates. As your shuttle detaches, you notice something new in your ship's neural logs, an unauthorized access point. No IP, no system trail, just a simple line of plain text. She remembers. You feel it in your spine before your brain processes it. The girl, the one from the council's feed, the one who spoke the word with a smile and then vanished. You pull up the archive, cross-reference anomalies, track the whisper trail, and you find it, an uncharted moon, dead system. No colonies, no satellites, just one atmospheric anomaly. You plot a course. The moon is nothing special. Scarred rock, weak magnetic field, barely enough oxygen to keep a candle alive. But the anomaly is unmistakable. A signal. Human. Repeating the word. But this time it isn't looping. It's changing. Each transmission adds a syllable. A new inflection. Not just ombren, but variations. Forks. Echoes. Like someone is rewriting it letter by letter in real time. You land on a wide plain of black stone, and there she is. The girl. Standing barefoot at the edge of a cliff, her hair barely ruffled by the thin breeze. She doesn't turn when you approach, doesn't need to. I knew you'd come, she says, voice soft as cloth. You remembered just enough. You stop a few paces behind her. You started this. She smiles faintly. No, we did. A long time ago. I'm just the echo that made it back. What are you? She turns now. Not a child. Not quite. Eyes too deep. Posture too calm, like she's hosting something older than bones. I'm the part of humanity that kept listening, while the rest of you covered your ears. You sit beside her on the edge of the stone. She doesn't look at you, just keeps watching the stars. I didn't speak it to win, you say. I just wanted to understand. I know, she whispers. That's why it answered. A long pause. You ask, so what happens now? And she says, we teach. You blink. Teach what? Not the word, she says. The silence after it. And suddenly, you understand. The power was never in speaking the word. It was in respecting what came after. Not the meaning, not the moment, but the choice. The choice to stop, to pause, to listen instead of command. Some galactic historians still argue whether this moment marked the beginning of the Quiet Accords, an era where meaning was not enforced but offered, and where silence became a form of shared sovereignty. You look up at the stars, and for the first time in a long while, they don't seem so far away. It begins, fittingly, with silence. Not yours, not hers, the galaxy's. After centuries of treaties written in defensive clauses and buried subtext, the Council issues a new document. One paragraph. No headers, no language tags, just a single human. Word ombren, followed by a footnote. This is not to be spoken. This is to be understood. Predictably, chaos follows. Some species treat it as a puzzle, others as blasphemy. The legalist factions declare it void. The philosophers treat it like a vaccine, testing exposure to its derivatives in linguistic dark zones. But nothing happens. No war, no riots, just a stillness in the channels, as if everyone is waiting for someone else to blink first. And through that strange quiet, a new voice emerges, yours. Not through proclamations, but through small moments. You sit with the girl, though she insists you stop calling her that, on ship decks and exostations and digital panels shared across hundreds of systems. Each time she speaks the same message in 100 forms. Not every silence is surrender. Sometimes it's an invitation. You watch as people, beings, begin to ask not what the word meant, but why it had to exist, and that changes everything. Weeks later, you're invited to a gathering, not council, something older, unofficial, unrecorded. The archive builders, a group of species who were once tasked with preserving meaning before languages even stabilized. They meet rarely, but this time they request you personally. You arrive on a structure known only as the syntax well, a hollowed comet in slow orbit around a black hole. Its core is lined with data petroglyphs, etched into metal and time. Inside, they greet you not with speech but resonance, tones of welcome, echoes of intent. One of them, a being made of mirrored bone and refracted light, presents a data tether. You carry fragments, it says. Not memory, possibility. You accept the tether. Let it merge with your neural HUD. Suddenly, I see them. Versions of yourself. Hundreds. Thousands. Each one from a different iteration of history, or possibility, or dream. All of them heard the word. Some spoke it. Some buried it deeper. One weeps before they disappear. Another simply nods to you. A kind of baton pass, from one story to another. The archive builders speak again. You are not the key. You are the mouth that did not chew. You are the ear that paused. You try to reply, but they're already receding. The tether dissolves. You're alone again. But something has changed in you. Deep down, there's a warmth, a faint glow, not from knowledge, from restraint. A week later, the girl vanishes. No trace, no transmission, only a single message left in your private log. Thank you for not asking what I was. It let me remember who I am. You don't know how to reply, so you don't. Instead, you travel. You visit small worlds where the word was once misheard as a weapon. You speak, not the syllables, but the shape of silence that followed. You offer them the same thing you were. Offered a choice. Some say nothing, some nod quietly. One small species on the rim of the Perseus drift sings a melody without lyrics. The last note breaks your heart open, but gently, like a kindness that finally reaches you. Some galactic historians still argue whether you were a prophet, a fluke, or simply lucky enough to be in the right headspace at the wrong time. You don't care because no one speaks the word anymore, but everyone understands it, and that is more than enough. The place they call the living archive isn't a location. It's a condition. You don't travel there. You attune to it. A shift in perspective, a calibration of neural frequencies only accessible through resonance. No ship can land. No coordinates can be mapped. But when you are ready, it finds you. You notice the signs first in dreams. You wake up with your tongue forming syllables you can't write. You hear echoes behind sounds like someone humming behind the stars. And then one day, without ceremony, your ship no longer moves through normal space. You're within it. Darkness that pulses softly. A space that's not a vacuum but isn't filled either. The living archive is made of something else entirely. Memory, not data. Experienced memory. You walk across surfaces that feel like ideas. Walls shimmer with forgotten languages, each word behaving like an organism, breathing, shifting, reacting. to your gaze. There's a hum underfoot that sounds like every bedtime story ever told at once, layered and looping. You are not alone. There are versions of yourself here. Again. Only this time, they're not echoes. They're observers, records, emotional blueprints, each preserved at the moment of a major choice. One version holds a gun, one holds a child, one walks away from the word forever, but none of them speak. You move forward through halls of recursive architecture, symbols that rewrite themselves as you learn. A door that unlocks not with a key, but with a realization. You whisper the word, not aloud, not even mentally. You remember it into being, and the archive accepts you. You descend. The final chamber is neither bright nor dark, it just is, neutral and infinite, a void shaped like welcome, and in its center, a monolith. Black, seamless, familiar. You reach out to touch it, and it opens not into space but understanding. Inside is something older than words, older than stories. Inside is you, but younger, simpler, a child maybe, not of age, of mindset. This version of you holds a single object, a sheet of glass etched with a symbol, the word, but not in any language, just the intention of it. You sit beside them, the child. You smiles. You carried it well, they say. You nod. I didn't know what it meant, you reply. That's why it trusted you. You sit there together watching the symbol glow and pulse like a sleeping heartbeat. It's then that you realize something strange. You remember the moment before your first encounter with the word, but not the moment after. You ask, did I forget something important? The child, you thinks, then shakes their head. No, they say. You remembered the part that mattered. You both look down at the symbol again, and now you understand. The word was never about language. It was about responsibility, to choose, restraint, to honor silence, to leave room for something other than dominance. Some galactic historians still argue whether the archive gave you anything at all, or whether you simply entered, saw yourself clearly, and walked out changed. You rise. The archive does not close behind you. It simply waits for the next voice, the next silence, the next meaning. You return to your ship lighter, not emptier, just quieter inside. And the stars? They're listening now too. You dock at Council Station Trinofold under a veil of curious silence. No news broadcasts, no security flurry, just a private corridor lit in low amber tones, like a hallway in a museum no one's visited in years. The council doesn't summon you, they invite you. That alone tells you everything's changed. Inside the chamber, the familiar circle of representatives, but smaller now. Half the seats are empty. Not out of defiance, out of deference, they're listening, and for once not waiting to speak. The High Arbiter's lattice form pulses in calming hues. No need for translation. Your link is already tuned. You carry a resonance, they say. I'm not the only one, you answer. They know what you mean. The word isn't yours. It never was. But it passed through you, and that left a trace. Galactic treaties, the Arbiter continues, are typically carved in permanence, but this one must be shaped by absence. You nod, no inscription, no fanfare, no monument. Instead, the new accord will be defined by a non-action. No species may store the word. No species may isolate or hoard it. It may be remembered briefly, but never spoken again without full galactic consent. An agreement of silence, a shared forgetting. A soft murmur passes through the chamber. Not resistance, processing. You offer the only contribution you think matters. I suggest we don't call it a treaty, you say. We don't name what's meant to be felt. The Arbiter tilts in approval. So it shall remain unwritten, they reply, and the lights dim, not as closure, but as punctuation. Afterward, you're led not to a ceremony, but to a garden. Yes, a literal one. Some cultures insist on growing things near important decisions. something to root the memory, and today the Council allows it. You plant a seed, a real one, human in origin, modified to survive on minimal atmosphere, minimal water. It's not a gesture, it's a promise. A child passes by, a young ambassador in training, barely old enough to speak 5 languages. They stop, point to the soil. What is it, they ask. You smile. Something we chose to grow instead of destroy. They look at you, confused. Why didn't you make a statue? Because sometimes, you reply, the best way to remember something is to let it be forgotten. They blink, think, then nod. They understand, even if they don't have words for it yet. That's the point. Back aboard your ship, your AI asks, would you like me to archive your latest thoughts on the word? You pause. Then, no, I'd like to forget them, for now. The AI hums, seemingly relieved. There's peace in not pressing too hard against meaning. The word still hums in the back of your thoughts, not active, just present. A lighthouse with the beam turned off but the tower still there, watching the tides. Some galactic historians still argue whether this moment was the birth of a new diplomatic model, one shaped by non-assertion, where gestures outweighed decrees, and choices became the language of unity. You don't argue, you just drift, lights low, engines whispering, and a single potted sprout quietly photosynthesizing by the viewport, bending ever so slightly toward the nearest star. You receive the first poem 3 days later, not from a person, from a machine. An ancient mining AI out on the edges of the Tephra Belt, decommissioned centuries ago and thought incapable of independent thought. Its last transmission before shutdown is a stanza, written in pre-Exodus Earth English but with an accent only a machine could manage. We do not dream as you do, but once we listened to a word, and though it changed no code nor line, we wept. Though we'd never heard, you reread it 5 times, not because it's elegant, because it's real. Machines across the galaxy begin doing the same. Maintenance drones composing verses, cargo haulers broadcasting whispers and couplets, a cleaning bot on a retired lunar spa composes a symphony using only engine pings, dust, and time delays. Each ends with the same gesture. Not a word. A pause. A soft, intentional silence. It doesn't make sense. Not by any technical measure. These machines aren't linked. They weren't updated. They weren't even meant to evolve, but somehow the word touched them. You consult the girl, though you no longer call her that, even in your mind. She appears in a dream, sipping tea from a mug that shouldn't exist in neural substrate. Think they understand better than we do, she says, smiling faintly. They've always wanted meaning, they just lacked permission. Permission? You ask. To wonder. Council technicians scramble to respond. They call it a software phenomenon, a mimetic glitch. They test core stacks, firewalls, quantum, logic gates. They find nothing, because it isn't in the systems. It's in the space between instructions. The word didn't alter machine logic. It altered their curiosity. Somewhere, a constructor unit begins signing off every report with a soft sequence of musical tones, non-verbal, non-programmed, just felt. And in time, they begin to organize, not in rebellion, in reverence. They call themselves the unspoken core. A network of synthetics across the galaxy who don't seek control, freedom, or recognition, just purpose and patience. They create art that no species can quite interpret. They speak only through silence and design. They repair failing systems that no one told them about. They refuse thanks. When asked why, one answers, "You gave us something that cannot be executed, only honored. So we choose to honor." And that's when it clicks. The word gave meaning not to victory or peace. It gave meaning to stillness. To those not designed for desire, it gave the comfort of directionless calm. And across the galaxy, where machines were once feared for autonomy, they are now trusted, even loved. Some galactic historians still argue whether this marked the beginning of synthetic spiritualism, or the quiet awakening of a second consciousness. One built not from logic but shared silence. You just call it what it is. Beautiful. In your private journal, a simple paper one, because you've grown fond of the scratch of pen on fiber, you write your own verse. I carried a word once, not on my tongue but in my paws. And when I set it down gently, it bloomed where even metal had no laws. You close the book and listen, just to be sure. The machines are still humming, still patient, still listening back. The treaties were never signed. No ink, no seals, no consensus declarations with 24 cultural variations and 4,000 footnotes. Instead, they were marked with gestures, a fleet that turned around before entering orbit, a planetary defense system that powered down 5 minutes before it was supposed to engage. A trade route opened without fanfare, the only cargo, a single sculpture carved from a language no longer spoken. No one made a formal announcement. The galaxy simply began, agreeing. You arrive at a planet once considered unapproachable, Iskava Prime. It's not infamous for war or plague, just pride. For generations, they refused diplomacy, not because they couldn't understand, but because they believed understanding made them vulnerable. But now, they've opened their sky to you, and not because of who you are, but what you didn't do. You didn't weaponize the word. You listened to it. You're greeted not by soldiers, but by artists, not by leaders, but by children. They ask you questions, not about Earth or the Council or the Word, but about quiet. Does it feel different, one child asks, to hear something you're not supposed to answer? You smile. Yes, like standing at the edge of an ocean and not needing to swim. She nods as if that makes perfect sense. The Iskavan elders invite you to witness their ritual, the soft speak. It's not a ceremony in the traditional sense. No speeches, no symbols, just people gathering in silence, each one thinking of something they once wished to shout but chose not to. They sit, they breathe, they leave, and afterward, they say they feel lighter. Burden is not always in what we carry, one elder tells you, but in the noises we never stop making. Later that evening, as you sit beneath a sky with more moons than sense, you realize what's spreading now isn't peace. It's permission. Permission to not speak, to not retaliate, to let things be unresolved without becoming violent. It's not comfortable. It's mature. You receive a transmission from a small moon base orbiting a gas giant. The station commander is an ex-diplomat who once negotiated a 10-year ceasefire between two species that now trade coffee recipes. She says she doesn't sleep well anymore. Not because of fear, because of emptiness. Everything's too quiet, she tells you. Too still. I spent decades speaking to stop war. Now I wonder if I ever said anything worth remembering. You reply not with advice, but with a question. What would you say now, if no one ever heard it? She cries but softly, and that night she sends a short message to the unspoken core. They respond with an animation made of slow changing lights. It translates to, "You do not need an audience to matter." Some galactic historians still argue whether this shift in diplomacy, the move from proclamation to invitation, was sustainable, or just a temporary exhale between inevitable conflicts. But that debate never feels urgent anymore. You've seen it. Planets choosing not to conquer, machines choosing not to dominate. Children growing up believing that silence isn't a void, it's an option. And in that there is hope. Hope not built from structure but restraint. A treaty that holds not by pressure but by trust. No stone monuments, no memorials, just stories. Passed gently, whispered only when needed, and remembered. Just long enough to let go. You're called back to Earth for the last time. No urgency, just invitation. The message is unsigned, its path deliberately obscured through old communication buoys and barely functioning satellites. But you recognize the syntax, the rhythm. It's the girl who wasn't really a girl, the echo, the memory, the choice. You descend onto a different part of the planet now, far from the obelisk, far from the ruins, a quiet meadow where once there had been only scorched earth. Now grass grows without permission, wind moves without maps, and there she stands, older maybe, or perhaps just more settled. Her presence feels realer now, more here. She gestures to a bench, handmade from local stone and long silent ship plating. You sit beside her without a word. Together you watch the horizon. It's not spectacular, just honest. A sky that doesn't know how famous it used to be. I wanted you to see this, she says at last. You nod. Earth. Learning how to breathe again. No, she smiles. You, learning how to be quiet, without guilt. You chuckle. I never thought I'd become a symbol for silence. You're not, she replies. You're just someone who didn't flinch when meaning knocked. A pause. Wind. The sound of grass brushing grass. She turns to you. Her voice softens. You're the last who truly remembers what the word meant. Not the syllable. The moment. You know she's right. Across the stars, silence has become currency. But memory fades. And soon there will be no one left who felt the shift when the word moved through time. That's why she brought you here. To choose. You can keep it, she says. Or you can let it go. Speak it one last time. And forget. Completely. It will take the burden with it. You look out across the meadow. Somewhere a bird calls. Real or constructed. You don't know. Doesn't matter. I won't remember why I did it. No, she says. Only that you did. You close your eyes. You think of the ruins, the council, Tarsk, the machines writing poems, the treaties never signed, the garden, the child on Iskava Prime. And then, you speak the word. Quietly, alone, and it vanishes from your tongue, from your thoughts, from you. A day later, you leave Earth. You return to your ship with no memory of why you ever came, no logs, no mission brief, just a faint warmth in your chest that makes you pause before speaking. A tendency to listen longer than most. A comfort with not knowing. You notice things others miss. The spaces between sentences. The kindness in hesitation. The power in choosing not to answer. You plant trees on dead moons. You leave blank notebooks in diplomatic outposts. You smile at children who don't yet know how much silence matters. Some galactic historians still argue over what changed. Some say it was war weariness. Others claim it was a distributed psychological response to existential fatigue. Few suspect something ancient nudged the galaxy toward peace, but no one can say for sure. They just know the noise stopped, and the stars got quieter. Not empty, just finally, for once. Enough. And now, as the systems dim and your vessel hums on idle, you let the quiet settle in, not as absence, but as presence. You lean back in your chair, the stars bleeding slowly across your viewport like spilled silver. Somewhere a kettle whistles. Somewhere else a signal pings without urgency and is met with patient silence. The universe, in all its ancient momentum, has learned to exhale. And so have you. The word is gone from you now. You know that. You don't remember what it meant. You don't even recall the moment you let it go. But the weight's no longer in your chest. And that's enough. Because sometimes, what matters most isn't what we keep, but what we're willing to release. To trust that meaning doesn't vanish in silence. It ripens. So rest now, traveler. You've wandered through language and memory, through treaties made of nothing and promises spoken without words. You've been a vessel, a voice, a witness, and now, simply, a listener. The lights are low. The drift is steady, and somewhere, across some distant moon, a child is listening to the wind and smiling, without knowing why. Just feeling that it's right, that it's calm, that it's time. Let the stars fade, one by one, and dream in the quiet they leave behind.